No one
Hold
noticed
on,
when
little
the
ones,
storm
we're almost
began.
there.
The alley had always been a
Boy,
place
keep
of
up.
forgotten things. Cracked bricks, rusted
Hold on,
cans,
little ones, we're almost
scraps
there.
of paper pressed flat by countless
Boy, keep up.
footsteps. Evening had settled quietly.
Hold on,
the air
little ones,
thick
we're
and
almost
heavy,
there.
clouds gathering like
Good boy,
silent
keep up.
spectators overhead. Then, without warning, the sky split open. Wind surged between the narrow walls, howling like an unseen creature. Rain followed in violent sheets, striking the pavement with relentless force. Loose plastic bags lifted and twisted in frantic spirals. A stack of discarded boxes collapsed, scattering soggy fragments across the ground. Thunder cracked so sharply it seemed to shake the bones of the city itself. Near the mouth of the alley, half hidden beneath a leaning metal gate, sat a small cardboard box. It had been placed there hours earlier by hands that hesitated only briefly before retreating. The box, already softened by moisture, trembled as the storm intensified. A sudden gust of wind swept through, catching its side. The box tipped, rocked once, and fell onto the wet pavement. Inside, 3 tiny kittens huddled together. Their world had been darkness, warmth, and the faint scent of their mother. Now cold water seeped through the cardboard floor, soaking their thin fur. The shock of it stirred them awake. Small, fragile cries rose into the storm, thin sounds easily swallowed by thunder, yet filled with desperate life. Not far away, beneath the jagged overhang of a broken wooden pallet, a stray dog lay curled tightly into herself. Her ribs were faintly visible beneath her damp coat, her breathing slow with exhaustion. She had learned the language of survival. Stay still, conserve warmth, wait for morning. Storms were endured, not challenged. But then her ears twitched. At first, it was nothing more than a flicker of sound, something almost imagined between bursts of thunder. The dog lifted her head slightly, eyes narrowing. Rain drummed against metal and stone. Wind whistled through gaps in the walls. Yet beneath it all came a trembling note, soft, irregular, impossibly small. A cry. The dog stood cautiously, muscles stiff from cold. Water streamed from her fur as she stepped into the open. The storm greeted her with fury, wind pressing against her body, rain stinging her eyes. She hesitated, instinct urging retreat. But the sound came again, weak, fragile, persistent. She moved forward. Each step was uncertain, paws splashing through shallow puddles forming along the cracked pavement. Lightning flashed, illuminating the alley in stark white bursts. Shadows leapt and vanished, and there, near the fallen box, something stirred. The kittens were barely visible, tiny shapes trembling against the soaked cardboard. Their cries, though faint, now carried clearly in the spaces between thunder. The dog froze. For a long moment she simply stared. Animals understood many things: hunger, danger, territory, fear. But this was something different. The creatures before her were not prey, not rivals, not threats. They were small beyond comprehension, fragile beyond reason. Rain continued to fall mercilessly, matting their fur, draining their warmth. One kitten struggled weakly, its tiny body shaking violently. The dog stepped closer, her nose lowered, hovering just above the edge of the ruined box. The unfamiliar scent reached her. Milk, fear, helplessness. The kittens cried louder at her presence, their thin voices quivering with panic. She circled once, then again, confusion flickering in her tired eyes. Wind roared through the alley. Another flash of lightning split the sky. Thunder exploded overhead. The kittens shrank deeper into one another, their cries breaking into frantic, breathless sounds. Cold water pooled beneath them. Something shifted inside the dog. It was not thought, not decision. Something older, deeper, an instinct carried quietly through generations. A response written into bone and heartbeat. She moved without hesitation now. Slowly, deliberately, the dog lowered herself beside the box. Her body curved protectively, forming a barrier against the wind. She nudged the soaked cardboard gently, drawing the kittens closer to her warmth. The tiny creatures stiffened at first, their cries sharp with fear. But the storm offered no alternatives. Rain continued to fall. The dog curled tighter. Wind battered her back, water streamed down her sides, yet she did not move away. The kittens, trembling and confused, pressed instinctively toward the heat of her body. Their cries softened, then steadied into fragile, uneven breaths. And above the raging storm, unnoticed by the world beyond the alley, four small lives clung together in the darkness, bound by nothing but warmth, survival, and a silent, inexplicable act of compassion. Expend Part 2 in 700 words without headings. Part 2, the night stretched endlessly, as if the storm had decided it would never loosen its grip on the alley. Rain fell harder, driven sideways by the wind, finding every gap in the broken walls and every weakness in the shadows. The mother dog remained curled beside the fallen box, her body tense, muscles aching as she fought against the cold creeping into her bones. Water soaked her fur until it clung heavy against her skin, yet she stayed exactly where she was. The kittens shivered against her chest, their tiny bodies trembling like fragile leaves. Each breath they took was shallow and uneven, their warmth fading each time a sharp gust of wind cut through the alley. The dog shifted slightly, careful not to startle them, adjusting her body so the wind struck her back instead of them. She tucked her legs closer, forming a tighter shelter, her tail pressing gently against the smallest kitten. Thunder rolled overhead, deep and relentless. With each crash, the kittens jerked, their soft cries rising in panicked bursts. The dog flinched, too, instinct urging her to run, to find deeper cover. But she stayed. She lowered her head, resting her chin near the edge of the box, her breath warm as it brushed over the kitten's damp fur. Time lost its meaning. Minutes blurred into hours, marked only by the rhythm of rain and the steady ache in her body. Hunger gnawed at her stomach, a dull, familiar pain she had learned to ignore. What she could not ignore was the way the kittens' shivering slowed when they pressed closer, how their cries softened when they felt her warmth. At some point, the rain grew colder, the air thickened with a sharp chill that sank into stone and bone alike. The dog's muscles began to tremble, fatigue weighing heavily on her limbs. She shifted again, placing one paw carefully over the edge of the box, blocking a thin stream of water that threatened to seep inside. Her ears flicked constantly, alert to every sound, every movement in the dark. A shadow moved at the far end of the alley, a stray cat darting past, a rat scrambling for shelter, or perhaps just wind playing tricks on tired eyes. The dog lifted her head, teeth bared slightly, a silent warning. Nothing came closer. The alley returned to its lonely chorus of rain and thunder. The kitten stirred. One tried weakly to crawl, its tiny legs slipping uselessly against the soggy cardboard. It mewed in distress, a thin breaking sound. The dog responded instantly, lowering her head and nudging it gently back toward the warmth of her body. Her touch was careful, almost reverent, as if she sensed just how fragile they were. Another kitten burrowed deeper into her fur, its small nose pressing against her chest. Its heartbeat fluttered rapidly beneath her skin, fast and desperate. The dog exhaled slowly, steadying her own breathing, offering what comfort she could in the only way she knew, by staying. The storm roared on. Lightning flashed again, illuminating the alley in harsh white light. For a brief moment, everything was visible. The broken walls, the scattered debris, the soaked cardboard box, and the lone dog curled protectively around three helpless lives. Then darkness returned, thicker than before. The dog's eyes burned with exhaustion. She blinked slowly, fighting the pull of sleep. She knew better than to sleep deeply in the open, especially during a storm. Yet her body betrayed her, head dipping for a heartbeat before snapping back up at the next clap of thunder. Still, she did not leave. Hours passed. The rain began to ease, its furious drumming softening into a steady, quieter fall. The wind lost some of its sharpness, though it still whispered through the alley, cold and persistent. The kitten's cries faded almost entirely, replaced by soft, uneven breathing and the faintest purring, born more from instinct than comfort. The dog lifted her head slightly, listening. The world seemed to exhale. Though her body ached and her fur was heavy with water, something unfamiliar stirred beneath the fatigue. Not relief, not yet, but a fragile sense of purpose. As long as the kittens breathed, as long as the night still lingered, she would remain. And so, in the darkest hours before dawn, while the storm slowly loosened its grip on the city, the mother dog kept her silent watch, a living shield against the cold, the rain, and the fragile edge between life and loss. By the time the first pale streaks of dawn began to slip through the clouds, the storm had lost much of its fury. The alley, once a chaotic mess of wind, water, and debris, had settled into a soggy quiet. Rain still fell in gentle sheets, tapping softly against the cracked pavement, but the harshness of the night had faded. The mother dog remained curled protectively around the kittens, her coat matted and dripping, eyes weary yet vigilant. Hours of standing guard had taken their toll. Her muscles ached, her body shivered from the lingering cold, but she could not leave. Not yet. Not while the fragile lives she had fought to protect still depended on her. The kittens, exhausted and soaked through, nestled closer to her warmth. Their tiny bodies trembled less now, though every so often a faint shiver ran through them as if the night's chill was still trying to cling. The mother dog exhaled slowly, letting her breath warm the closest one, pressing her side firmly against the smallest kitten to shield it from the damp air. Even in the dim morning light, their small, fragile forms looked impossibly tiny against her larger frame, each a delicate heartbeat against the storm-battered world. The alley began to stir with new sounds: distant traffic, the occasional bird testing the wet morning air, and the faint hum of early activity from the streets beyond. The mother dog's ears twitched at every unfamiliar noise, her body coiled in instinctive readiness. The kittens stirred as well, noses twitching, tiny ears flicking at each new sound. They were alive. They had survived the night. The realization brought a spark of cautious relief to her tired mind, though vigilance still held her in place. Then, a new sound broke through. Footsteps, slow and careful, crunching over scattered debris. The mother dog stiffened immediately, eyes narrowing, body instinctively shielding the kittens. Her gaze darted toward the alley's entrance, ears straining to catch each echo. Another step, deliberate and hesitant, drew closer. The woman walking down the street paused, peering into the alley. Rain had plastered her hair to her face, and her coat was soaked, but her eyes widened as she took in the scene before her. There, in the pale morning light, was a mother dog, wet and exhausted, curled protectively around three tiny, trembling kittens. Her gaze was steady and calm, a quiet determination shining through her exhaustion. The woman's breath caught. She stepped closer, moving slowly so as not to startle the fragile tableau. "Luna," she whispered, her voice trembling with disbelief. The mother dog lifted her head slightly, ears perking at the sound of the name she had not heard in months. Recognition sparked in her eyes, a flicker of hope and relief mixed with caution. The kittens shifted against her body, pressing closer instinctively, their small mews echoing softly. The woman's steps quickened as she approached, tears streaming down her cheeks. She reached out tentatively, hands trembling, and the mother dog remained still, though her eyes never left the woman. After months of uncertainty, of searching and hoping against despair, here was Luna, alive, standing before her not as the fragile stray she had feared she had lost, but as a guardian, a protector of life, a small miracle born of resilience and instinct. The mother dog's tail twitched in recognition, brushing lightly against the smallest kitten. Her gaze softened, and for a moment the storm, the fear, the cold, it all seemed to fall away, leaving only the quiet bond between them. The kittens, sensing the safety of this human presence, stirred and let out soft, hesitant mews. The woman knelt down, carefully reaching to scoop them up, one by one. Luna remained close, her body curved around the last kitten, guarding it until it was safe in this woman's arms. Sunlight finally broke through the clouds, spilling over the alley in gentle golden rays. The damp bricks glistened, the puddles reflected the soft morning sky, and the wind had calmed to a gentle whisper. Luna rose slowly, fatigue evident in each movement, but there was strength in her eyes. The kittens nestled into the warmth of the woman's coat, small purrs beginning to vibrate from their tiny chests. The woman stroked Luna's wet fur, whispering reassurances and gratitude, unable to fully voice the awe that filled her heart. For Luna, the ordeal of the night was over. For the kittens, it was the first dawn of a new life, safe in the protection that had carried them through the storm. And for the woman, it was the miraculous reunion she had longed for, a reminder that even in the darkest, most relentless nights, hope could survive, and love, instinctual and unwavering, could triumph. The alley, silent now except for the soft dripping of rain and the faint purrs of life saved, seemed to hold its breath, as if acknowledging that something extraordinary had unfolded within its narrow walls. Expend Part 4, in 700 words, without headings. Part 4. The woman stood in the alley, her arms full of the kittens, her coat dripping with the remnants of the night storm. Her gaze remained locked on Luna, the mother dog whose presence had saved these tiny lives. The weight of relief, disbelief, and gratitude pressed on her chest, and she could hardly believe her eyes. Months earlier, Luna had vanished during a violent storm, leaving only an emptiness that no search, no hope could fully fill. Yet here she was, alive, standing as a silent guardian over the fragile lives she had rescued. The kittens wriggled softly in the woman's arms, still damp and shivering, but their trembling had slowed. Each tiny paw, each fluttering heartbeat reminded her of the miracle she was witnessing. Luna had endured the cold, the wind, and the rain, refusing to abandon the vulnerable creatures despite her own exhaustion and hunger. The woman knelt carefully on the wet pavement, setting the kittens down gently while keeping her movements slow, deliberate, and full of caution. She wanted Luna to trust her, but the dog's protective instinct remained sharp, guarding her charges with unwavering vigilance. Luna lowered her head slightly, sniffing the kittens, ensuring they were safe. Her ears twitched at every subtle sound, still alert to the slightest sign of danger, even though the threat had long since passed. The woman could see the pride and relief in Luna's eyes, the quiet strength that had carried her through the storm. It was as if the dog had silently said, "I will not let harm touch them." The woman's heart swelled at the thought. It had been so long since she had last seen Luna, and now she understood the depth of the bond that had formed between mother and kittens, a bond forged in the crucible of the night. Carefully, the woman began to speak softly, her words gentle and soothing, a lullaby of reassurance. "It's okay, Luna. They're safe now. You're safe now." Luna's gaze shifted to the woman, and for the first time, a faint wag of her tail betrayed recognition, a quiet acknowledgement that this human meant no harm. She stepped closer, circling the kittens to ensure they were protected, before allowing the woman to gather them into her arms once more. Their tiny bodies curled instinctively against her warmth, seeking the security they had known under Luna's watchful presence. The alley, damp and battered from the night's storm, seemed almost serene now. The rain had ceased entirely, leaving only soft mist and the faint glimmer of water droplets clinging to broken bricks and scattered debris. The woman rose slowly, holding the kittens against her chest, and Luna followed, her paws wet but steady. Step by step, they made their way out of the alley, Luna staying close, protective yet gentle, guiding the woman with quiet insistence as if to ensure the path to safety was clear. As they emerged into the morning light, the world seemed to transform. The streets were washed clean, glistening under the soft golden rays of the sun. Puddles reflected the sky, birds chirped tentatively from the trees, and the scent of wet earth filled the air. It was a stark contrast to the terror and chaos of the previous night, a reminder of survival and renewal. The woman felt a lump rise in her throat as she realized the full magnitude of what had happened. Luna had not only survived, she had saved lives in the process, guiding them through danger with instinct and courage. The woman turned to Luna, kneeling once more to meet her gaze. "You're incredible," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. Luna's eyes, still alert but softer now, met hers. In that moment, no words were necessary. The bond of trust, loyalty, and survival was evident in every shiver, every glance, every careful movement. The kittens, snug in the woman's arms, mewed softly, tiny voices that seemed to sing a song of life and hope. They reached the woman's home, a small, warm space that had been waiting for this day. Luna followed carefully, her paws pattering on the wooden floor, eyes scanning every corner before settling down. One by one, the kittens were placed gently onto soft blankets. They began to purr, curling against one another in comfort, their tiny bodies finally able to relax after the night's ordeal. Luna watched over them, still protective, still vigilant, but the tension in her body had lessened. She had completed her duty, guided by instinct, courage, and love. The woman sat beside her, stroking her fur, whispering reassurances. The room was filled with warmth, a sanctuary born from the remnants of a storm. The kittens played cautiously, tiny paws batting at one another, eyes bright with curiosity, their first moments of true safety. Luna, exhausted but triumphant, lay down beside them, her body forming a living shield once more, even now in the comfort of home. The miracle of survival, of love and devotion, had been realized. And in that quiet, golden morning, the woman understood that some bonds were unbreakable, forged not by choice but by instinct, courage, and the simple unwavering will to protect those who cannot protect themselves.